I'm a very strong critic of wokeness myself, but at the same time, I want to sort of balance that with the fact that the right does call everything they don't like woke and they wage a war against it. And then also, you do have a massive increase in recent years, led by Ron DeSantis in Florida and in many other red states across the country. This massive rise, hundreds of like anti-trans bills, for example, the banning of books. There's been 800 books that have been banned in Texas, 600 books that have been banned in Florida. And so what you see there is, I would categorize it as like a right-wing version of wokeness. It's like right-wing authoritarianism, where they're doing authoritarianism in service of their perceived social justice needs, right? Like they think it's social justice to get rid of the books they don't like. You know what I'm saying? So how do we balance, number one, doing a genuine left-wing critique of wokeness to say, hey guys, we should focus on class consciousness first and foremost, like do that while also not feed into the framework of the right and like accidentally assist them in their totally disingenuous crusade against wokeness, by which they define it as everything they don't like?
Well, you know what, Kyle? That's an excellent question. And I don't think there's an easy answer to it. Obviously, morality evolves, social mores evolve, and that there's going to inevitably be a resistance to what, in retrospect, was clearly a necessary evolution and transformation in social values and morals in general. I'm old enough to remember when, up until 1973, homosexuality was defined by the American Psychological Association as a mental disorder. I'm old enough to remember that a woman who aspired to a large number of jobs, these are all memories which, maybe for you, they sound strange, but they're vivid for me. In the employment sections of the newspapers, the headings were women, men. There was no consciousness of that being odd or aberrant, let alone retrograde. There were specific jobs allotted on the employment page to women and to men. And I'm not going to bore you by going through the 10,000 ways in which our society has evolved. And I think the broad consensus is, with marginal exceptions, it has evolved for the better. So, to the extent that what you call right-wing wokeism, or the right-wing denunciation of wokeism, is acting as an impediment to the positive transformation of our society, I, of course, agree it has to be resisted and fought. The problem, as I see it, is twofold. Number one, a lot of these questions that have come up are not clear-cut, in my opinion. That if you examine closely, as I have, and I write about it at some length in the book, if you examine the abortion question, I do not believe that the question of abortion is as clear-cut as liberals, woke people, the New York Times, Martha's Vineyard type, would make it out to be. And I do not believe it's correct to write off anybody who might have qualms on that question as being some right-wing Yahoo religious fanatic or bigot.
Well, certainly, just to cut you off for a sec there, certainly there's some gray area, but there are some things that go way too far, correct? Like Mike Pence talking about a national abortion ban, or some states, they just tried to ban the abortion pill, which would even hurt women who get miscarriages, for example. I agree with you that there's some gray area, but some positions are far too extreme, right? Like overturning Roe versus Wade, for example.
Listen, I totally agree, but I wish that your opinion could be articulated in a form that acknowledges the gray areas and not writing off everybody who disagrees with you as being some sort of antediluvian imbecile.
Yeah, but I didn't do that. I didn't call them imbeciles.
Similarly, I think there are legitimate questions about the trans issue. I'm going to speak about it in very broad terms. Now, let me be clear. I am with Chairman Mao Zedong, who famously said in his report on the uprising in Hunan province, which I'm shocked that you don't know, that Chairman Mao wrote, "No investigation, no right to speak." That is to say, to translate it into current language, which I hope you can air in this program, if you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, then shut the fuck up. So I admit I'm not knowledgeable because I think it requires a deep knowledge of science, biology, and medicine to speak on these subjects, like the trans phenomenon. But I find it deeply troubling when people who have no medical knowledge whatsoever, no scientific knowledge whatsoever, at most took high school biology, speak with such authority on these subjects as if anybody who disagrees has to be some sort of redneck or Yahoo.
But those are the people trying to ban it, right? Those are the ones who are making claims that they have no idea what they're talking
No,
about.
I think when I hear people speak authoritatively about gender fluidity, about there aren't two sexes, or to listen to Amy Goodman speak about people who get pregnant, or listen to AOC say people who menstruate. Well, I think reasonable people can say that's as a ridiculous a statement as saying there hasn't been climate change. It falls into the same lunatic
But
category.
hold on. Who's actually legislating? Who's legislating this stuff? You have people trying to ban any sort of treatment up till age 26. That seems like it's an overstep. Some people might use some goofy language, but at least they're not trying to legislate, trans people out of existence, whereas you do see that from the right.
I will, for the moment, I'm not talking about the legislative issue.
Yeah,
I'm talking
that's what matters.
Well, but I'm talking about the public conversation, which dismisses, you refer to the authoritarian tendency among woke people. I'm saying the liberal left woke, okay, not the right-wing woke. Mm-hmm. You refer to authoritarian tendencies. And I think one of those authoritarian tendencies is to pretend as if these questions are black and white, transparent. If you don't agree with us, then you're some sort of Yahoo or redneck. I don't think that's true.